Greetings, I am Tom Earl. On this week's episode, we talk moving beyond the fear and embracing your experience with Nurjahan Boulden. Check it out.
Woohoo!
Before we jump into this week's powerful episode with Nurjahan, I wanted to give you a heads up that we talk about gun violence on this week's episode. And if anything comes up while you're listening to this, that I want to encourage you to please reach out to people you trust and to reach out to professional mental health services. Reaching out for mental health is not a sign of weakness or that you're giving up. It's a sign of strength and healing. And so just wanted to make you aware of that before we jump in. And of course, any way I can be of support, just let me know. So, okay, here we go. Greetings, I am Tom Earl, and this is my year of grace. We know you could be anywhere, so the fact that you are here today sharing your greatest gifts, your time and energy means the world to me. I hope you know that in this moment, just as you are loved, appreciated, and valued. I am not alone. I have an amazing guest. She goes by the name of Nurjahan Boulden. How's it going today?
Good, how are you?
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your gifts with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure.
It.
So for the few folks out there who don't know who you are, do you mind if I introduce them to you via your bio?
Sure, go for it.
And I am known in many parts as an excellent bio reader.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear it.
This is going to get epic.
I'm excited.
Okay, but it starts very serious, so I'm gonna get into serious mood.
You can say it however you want to.
No, that's very goofy. And I was like, no, this is not, you don't read this sentence goofy. Okay. Nurjahan Boulden was 21 years old when she was shot with an assault rifle, an attack that killed the man next to her. That one night changed the trajectory of her life. Even as she moved on to become a teacher and a mother of three, PTSD and physical complications from the bullet wound threatened her future every day. 13 years later, she is now recognized as a national expert on gun violence prevention and recovery, and is America's leading coach for survivors of gun violence who are ready to feel safe again. Trademarked. There we go. I can
That's the important part of the bio.
Her story and work has been featured in a number of publications, including Cosmopolitan and Women's Health magazines. In addition to paving the way to recovery for survivors around the world, she is a transformational speaker, hosts online support groups and community resilience workshops, and is partnering with mental health professionals to bring gun violence prevention and recovery programs to schools and organizations across America. And most exciting of all, she was recently featured on Tom Earl's podcast.
Hey!
Had to sneak it in there.
Yeah. Put whatever few other things and also featured in.
There we go.
I love it.
So I always say to my guests, a bio can only contain so much.
Yeah.
So what are some things that a bio doesn't tell? If you really knew me, you'd know that.
Oh, man. All right. It's funny that it's not in the bio, but my passion is dancing. So if you really knew me, you'd know that you can find me dancing everywhere I can possibly dance in the world. Dancing down the street, dancing in a studio, dancing on the beach. Yeah, it's my passion.
What is your advice for people who feel comfortable dancing in private, but as soon as someone sees them, they clam up? They're like, no, don't look!
Oh my goodness, my favorite people in the world. My advice to them is just try it. Everybody loves the person on the dance floor that's just going crazy. In fact, I had, at one point, I wrote a letter to myself from my future self to my current self. And it was a letter saying all the things that I did in order to become who I wanted to become, right? It was a little inspirational letter to myself. And one of the things I wrote was, just take risks, because even if you fail, you get to be the person dancing like crazy in the middle of the dance floor, that even if people aren't looking, what a great dancer, they're thinking, man, if she can do it, then I definitely can. And those are the moments that I'm giving people permission to do whatever it is that's on their hearts. So whether you're going to be an amazing dancer or you're going to be like flailing around, either way, you'll be inspiring people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you remember when somebody was dancing somewhere and somebody took a picture and was like shaming him, and like you could visibly see him go from excited, and then when they shamed him to like sad, and then all of these celebrities were like this bullshit, this person's awesome, and they had like a huge party just for this person to dance. Did you see this?
No, I didn't, but it sounds like the most magical moment ever.
It was. It was super awesome.
Yeah, I think, I want to invite everybody in the world to dance. I think it's one of the best things. Here's why I think it's one of the best things. Okay. Can I tell a little story?
Story time.
Okay, so my leg injury, so I was shot in the leg, ironically, while I was out dancing. I tried to dance afterwards, but my leg, the injury was, it basically shattered my bone. It was an assault rifle, completely shattered my tibia. And so I continued to get worse instead of better. It was a non-union, so I was walking on a broken leg, using a cane most of the time for 8 years.
Oh my God.
It was, and those were my 20s, you know? I was walking with a cane, somebody who loved to dance, somebody who played soccer, all of the things that I loved were active. And so, honestly, this was a year ago. I had gone through so much healing, but I still didn't feel physically healed. I didn't feel whole physically. And I reached out to some other survivors, and I asked, what do people do in order to feel better? And it was a survivor group that was, there weren't any other people there who had been injured. So somebody posted a video about this man who was paraplegic, and he'd ended up in a wheelchair when he was like 12 years old from a car accident. And he taught yoga to people.
Wow.
And he did paraplegic yoga. That was what he did. And I thought, all right, if he figured out a way to be active and he's paralyzed, I can figure out a way to be active. Is it my physical ability that's really stopping me, or is it something else? And I realized that what was stopping me was my fear of not being a good dancer, not being able to be everything I knew I could be, and have people see me and think. So instead of hiding, I decided I was going to take my horrible dancing out into the streets, and I started dancing. I went on dances instead of going on runs. I would try to go on a run, and it would hurt like hell, and then I would stop. I had surgery, so it should have been fixed, but I still struggled a lot.
Yeah.
I would stop, I'd be frustrated, I wouldn't do it for months, and then I'd try again. Or I'd go on a walk and my leg would hurt and be like, all of that just for a walk. It wasn't even fun, it wasn't even invigorating. So one day when I was going on a run and it started hurting like hell, I thought, I'm listening to really good music. I'm just gonna start dancing, and I'm gonna dance my heart out. And I danced on main streets, and every time a car passed me by, I thought, they know my story, they know why I'm here, they're cheering me on, and they want me to be able to dance again. And I kept doing it until I got to the point where I could start running, where I could start dancing like I used to. And now I teach dance, I play soccer, I do all the things that I love. So I believe wholeheartedly in dancing, no matter how you dance, especially if you feel like you're a bad dancer. All the more reason to flaunt it.
I love that.
Yeah, you can feel free again. Yeah.
So were you born with this level of self-awareness and confidence and badassery? Were you just like, I'm here, Ma?
No! Oh my goodness, no. I was born a rebel, so I'll say that. I've never liked rules. And so if you tell me that there's a rule, I'm going to find a way to break it.
There we go.
I knew that for sure, which was a problem for most of my life, or felt like a problem, especially in school. So I had that, but I didn't have confidence. Confidence was something I struggled with in certain areas of my life. And so it's been something I've experienced a for real transformation in my life when it comes to being able to do what I want to do in the moment without fear, without worrying about what other people will think, without worrying about being everything to everybody else, but instead recognizing that if I'm everything to myself, I have the capacity to be more for everyone in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's been a big part of my transformation that happened after my shooting.
So you were in your 20s when that happened?
21 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, I was a baby.
Was it your first time at a club?
No.
It wasn't like, I turned 21, let's go out.
Okay, so context is that, so I was a junior in college.
Okay.
I was an adventurer. I grew up in a really small town. I was
How
one of
small?
super small.
Let's see whose town is smaller.
3,000 people.
You win, minus
Okay.
4.
All right. It was a small town. We had one stoplight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was very small. We used to go hang out by the river or go patty hopping, which means we were literally jumping on cow patties. We did a lot of it. So it was really fun in the sense that, you know, we didn't have a lock on our door. We felt free in a lot of ways, but also we were one of the only brown families in town. We were one of the only Muslim families in town, and there was a lot of racism. And we experienced that in a really hard way, especially after September 11th. So when I went off to college, I was determined to feel free. I just wanted to feel like I could be 100% me and do what I wanted to do. So I traveled around the world. I went on adventures. I danced whenever I wanted to. So the year of 2006, I was a junior in college. I studied abroad in Morocco.
Wow.
I traveled to 11 different countries that year.
Wow.
And that summer, my cousin was getting married in Toronto, Canada. So I decided to go. I went with my sister and my mom, just literally going for the weekend. And then I was coming back and I was going to be a van driver at college for the rest of the summer and then finish out my senior year. And that night we decided to go out to a nightclub to go dancing. It was either going to be karaoke or salsa dancing. Sunday night, so not many options.
Yeah.
We ended up at a reggae club. And then we were on the rooftop bar. There were about 600 people in the club. And somebody brought an assault rifle. And they said that the guy was targeting the man next to me. And that man was killed. And then I got shot in the leg. Another man got shot in the foot. And it completely turned my world upside down. For a while, I felt like, did this happen because I'm not supposed to be dancing? You know? I couldn't understand why it happened, and I couldn't even more so understand why I survived. I felt like I was meant to die that night, and then I didn't. And I didn't know what to do with myself after that. And it's funny when I share my story, a lot of people think that I got shot and then all of a sudden I had this new lease on life, but that's not how it went. I was shot and then I suffered for years by myself. And life moved on. You know, I got married, I had 3 beautiful children, I worked, I was doing all of these things with a smile on my face, but I was really struggling inside. I was having panic attacks regularly. I would go into a deep depression every time there was another mass shooting. I felt immense guilt and undeserving of being alive. In fact, I felt like it was impossible to be happy to be alive. I thought that's just not something that you can do after you survive something like this. And I had a mentor in my life who told me that one day I can be happy to be alive, and I thought he was full of it. But I've surrounded myself with people who tell me what feels impossible, and then I find a way to get there. And I remember the first day I woke up and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm happy to be alive.
Wow.
And then I woke up the next day and I was like, it's still here. I still feel like this.
Yeah.
And the next day and the next day, and I felt that way ever since. So it's been a really incredible journey.
That's amazing. You know, when people go through really traumatic things like this, I always worry that they have to constantly retell their story and go through it all over again.
Yeah.
Does it feel like this burden where people are like, tell the story? Is it re-traumatizing every time you have to tell it?
This is a great question, especially coming from you.
Okay.
So do you remember when we met?
At the TED Talk?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we were both giving a TEDx.
Yes.
And so this was about 2 years ago. I was ready to go up on stage, and I had my whole thing prepared. It was memorized. I was excited about it. I felt like it was going to be a powerful speech. And I went up, and the whole speech was about allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to share your story and to share it out loud, because so many of us hide by ourselves and don't realize that if we just share what's happened to us out loud and tell people how it's hurting us still, then we can get all the help that we need. But so many of us still hide. So that's what my TED Talk was about.
Yeah.
And I went up there, I did my whole thing, and I felt like I got hit by a train. I felt horrible. Like physically, my back was hurting. I was shaking. I felt horrible. And afterwards, no matter what anyone said, oh, that was great, whatever, I felt like a liar. Felt like, how dare I tell people to share their story when this is how bad it feels. And I wasn't expecting it to feel that bad, because I had shared my story before. I started that journey of opening up years before that. But the thing was, I decided that in this one, I was going to go even deeper. And I went even deeper, and I described things I had never described before. I opened up about things I had never opened up before. And I did get re-traumatized. I didn't understand what was happening to me in the moment, but I reached out for help, and I found out that was what was happening. And then I decided that I'm going to continue to retell my story. I'm going to find all of the ways that I can heal as I'm telling my story, so I can get to the point where I tell this story and I don't feel anything but peace. And I can do that now. Now, I'm saying that I love when people ask me to tell my story, because it gives me an opportunity to dig deeper and see if there's anything still. So I could retell it in some context and something might come up. I would say that I've retold it probably at least 15 times since the last time I felt something, and I feel peace. So I'm happy to share anything that you want me to share. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't have asked you to share it had I not asked beforehand if you wanted to.
I appreciate that.
Because I know for some people, they are healed, but that retelling just takes people back there, and sometimes it's a lot for people.
Yeah, and I think the context matters too, right? If people feel comfortable doing it in this space, or if there's another space, they would feel comfortable doing it, knowing that there's healing that happens right afterwards, or whatever it might be.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
and then it's not exploitative or tell the story.
Yeah,
and then
I'm not just doing it to please you. I'm doing it as a source of empowerment for me. But yeah, I'm very open to it.
So tell us about, if you feel comfortable, how you went from that first day of feeling like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
How did you get there?
To I'm happy to be alive. Oh, my goodness. Sometimes I wish that I had so much time to be able to share, because honestly, I have to give credit to all the guides that have been in my life ever since the first day I opened up. The first day I opened up about my story was 6 years after my shooting.
Wow.
So I lived for 6 years saying nothing. Literally nothing. I went to so I was really struggling. There was an active shooter drill at the school that I was working at. Right after the Aurora Theater shooting and the Sandy Hook shooting. And I was devastated. And the active shooter drill brought me right back into, I'm on the ground. This man's dying next to me. I don't know if I'm going to live. All of that. Just physically I felt like I was there. And every time I was re-triggered, I felt like I was there. And the cycle of that over and over and over in my mind, I couldn't get out of it. It was like for years I was stuck on that ground of that nightclub, watching this man bleed out and not knowing why I was still alive. And so the active shooter drill was such a big trigger that it got me to the point where I couldn't get out of bed anymore. I couldn't do the things that I was used to doing. And it blows my mind how resilient we can be, how we can walk around carrying all of these things with us until we just can't. And I got to the point where I couldn't. So I had 5 free counseling sessions through my job. I went to this guy and I said, listen, I can't go here every week. I have 5 sessions and I need you to tell me how to fix myself. This is the kind of person that I am.
Famous first sessions.
Just tell me how to fix myself. And he did. So he was like, all right, I'm going to give you the tools, which was so helpful. I wanted to be in charge of my healing and I wanted to be in charge of my recovery. So he first asked me, have you ever shared your story out loud? And I was like, yeah. At the time I was walking with a cane. So everyone in my life knew I'd been shot.
Yeah.
You know, even people I just met knew that the reason I'm walking with a cane is because I had this gunshot injury. And so I said, yeah, everybody knows. But he asked me, have you ever told it from beginning to end? Sharing all the emotions that you had while you were going through it, sharing just everything that you felt and saw and heard in those moments. And I didn't know. You know, I had holes in my memory. I didn't know. So I reached out to everyone in my life, to my friends, to my family, to my husband, and asked them, have I ever told you what happened that night? And they all said no. I said, we just assumed that it was something really horrible that happened to you and that you didn't want to revisit it. And so I asked my husband, can I tell you the story? And I just need you to listen. That's all I need you to do. And I opened up. I was shaking. I was crying. I was in it again. But I felt this massive release. And that was the first time that I felt like instead of adding things to that giant sack of crap that I was carrying around, I finally had an outlet. But I was still experiencing all these symptoms, so I would still go. I went out with my brother one night and somebody slapped something in the club that we were at, and I screamed and cried and ran. It's super embarrassing. It's embarrassing, you know, because, you know, you want to just be able to do the regular things, but I would have panic attacks and feel like I was dying. There would be a car that backfired and I would run crying down the street. I would be at work and stuff would happen and I would go into that state again. So I was still dealing with a lot of the same stuff. And it really wasn't until, I would say, 2 other things that happened. So another guide came into my life. She was a survivor and I didn't even know it at the time. I was at an alumni event and she was speaking. So I didn't know I was going to a speech from a survivor. And as she was speaking and sharing her story, I wanted to be anywhere but there. I didn't even want to hear it. But there was power in hearing her share her story and how strong she was and how hopeful she was. And it felt like she had something. I didn't know it at the time, but she had hope. And I didn't have that. So I went up to her afterwards and I told her, you know, I just wanted to let you know that what you said really meant so much to me. And, you know, I've had this experience. Her son was killed in a shooting and her story was devastating. And I felt like, who am I? You know, I survived. All that guilt was weighing on me. And I told her, you know, I was shot and I know it's nothing like your experience, but I just wanted to tell you that it meant a lot for me to see you up there sharing your story. And she said, you're a survivor and we'd love to have you speak as a survivor at our next event. And I was like, no, I'm not. You know, survivors do stuff afterwards. They're brave and strong and they overcome things. And I just failed to die. And so I told her, you know, I'm not the right person that you're looking for. And she kept saying, yes, you are. You're exactly who we're looking for. And I really thought that she was going to go back to her people and then say, you know, I talked to the other people. They actually found somebody who's a real survivor, so we don't need you to speak anymore. But she didn't. So I decided I was going to share my story as vulnerably and honestly as I could because I wanted people to understand. I wanted people to understand how hard it was, not just in that moment, but for the years afterwards. And I wanted other people to understand that if they're struggling in the same way, they're not alone. And when I shared that story, so many people started coming to me and telling me that they were survivors and that they had never talked about it or they had never opened up about it. And they were doing the same thing that I did. They were like, well, mine's not really the same because it was a drive-by, so, I wasn't shot. Or, mine's not really the same because it was my sibling that was killed. Or mine's not really the same because, and downplaying what your experience was, downplaying their pain. And I realized, oh my goodness, are all of us doing this? 81,000 people a year are shot and survive. Over 20,000 are shot and killed. How many people were there when it happened and were extremely traumatized? How many people have lost a loved one? How many people were shot and survived and have become, living in the shadows, become these invisible people we don't even hear about anymore? What happens after they're shot? Who do they reach out to? And there are one-on-one counselors that can be phenomenal. And also, who's saying, listen, if you got shot, you can make it through, and here's how I know. Here's what you can do. Here's step 1, step 2, step 3. Here's how you reach out for help. I didn't even know how to reach out for help. How do you reach out for help and feel truly heard? All of those things are really important and valuable. So the work that I do now is I build workshops. So the workshops are really important to me because it's creating space for people to open up about their experience and actually move through their experiences and envision a life completely outside of their pain. Because until you can imagine a life that you could live where you're truly happy, you can't create it. So you have to know that it's possible first, and then you can create that life, right? So I do those workshops. I do online programs. I have online free resources because not everybody is ready to take that step of showing up, reaching out to a counselor and showing up. I don't know how it's going to be for some people. They've gone to 4 different counselors and had bad experiences or whatever it might be. So before you're ready to take that step, what do you do? What resources are out there? How are we meeting people where they are? And so that's when I started doing this work. But how I got to the place where, your original question, how I got to the place where I was happy to be alive, so many amazing things. And all of them involved me moving through my fears. Me reaching out for help every time I was struggling, whether it was something silly like, I want to make a video, but I'm scared. Or something massive like, these emotions that I'm experiencing, I feel like if I feel them, I'm going to die. And being in spaces where people could support me while I was going through that and see me to the other side of it. Reaching out every single time I needed help. Literally nobody does this alone. I don't know of anyone who's been able to accomplish anything like toward their dreams, really accomplish something toward their dreams and feel really good about it without getting support. So I find my guides everywhere. I reach out for help constantly. I allow myself to be carried through my hardest experiences. And when I see fear, I used to think that fear meant something scary, something horrible might happen, especially if it was a decision that I had to make. How many bad decisions did I have to make to get to a place where I was shot? Maybe I can't trust myself anymore. So I started closing myself and buckling to my fears, thinking that I was keeping myself safe. And I've realized that fear is just on the edge of everything that you know. So being able to take that step further outside of that has been the most freeing and empowering thing I could have ever imagined. I never knew that fear was something I wanted to overcome. I always thought that fear was something that kept me safe. So I feel safer than I've ever felt being free in the world, and not because I'm buckling to my fears, but because I'm moving through them and I'm getting help in the process always in everything I do. I love my support system. I love my community, and I'm so incredibly grateful for it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How did you transition from where you were saying, and that you had a lot of awesome guides to stepping into that place and realizing I too am being called to be a guide?
I feel like I fell into it, honestly. For a long time, I didn't feel like I was good enough to be a guide. I'm me, I'm just little me. I felt so small and felt so insignificant. And then I realized that I was living things that people desired to live. And as I was sharing my story, people would reach out to me and be inspired and want to learn from it and ask me questions. And I almost felt like I wanted something to be created. It hadn't been created yet. So I was waiting for somebody to create it. waiting. And then I realized that I needed to be the one to create it. I needed to create what I wanted to see in the world. And there are incredible survivors who are out there sharing their stories, who are so inspiring, who uplift and feed off of each other. And I'm so grateful to be in their tribes, in their presence, incredible people. And there's nothing that's stopping any one of us from being somebody just like that, in creating the solution to whatever problem needs to be solved in the world. I needed people in my life who could see me as the person who could solve that problem. And then I could believe in myself. Does that make sense?
It does.
So being able to have guides in my life who, instead of, when you share a dream, especially when it's brand new and it's little, so I would share my dream with people in my life that I loved and trusted. And then they'd be like, that's great. You should find somebody to do that that's qualified.
Wow.
Or that's not really a thing. Like maybe really loving people who are just trying to protect me, just trying to, make sure that whatever I do is going to be successful, and it's not that. So find something else. I realized that when I started surrounding myself with people who weren't necessarily invested in me doing the safe thing or the thing that was going to be successful, but instead invested in me following whatever dream was in my heart, I started believing that the impossible was possible. And so I remember a conversation with Tasneem, who's our mutual friend, and she said, why don't you just draw a picture of whatever it is that you want to be, like, outside of the box.
Yeah.
Nothing stopping you. Draw a picture of it. So I drew this picture, and I was sitting cross-legged, and I was in a group of people, and we were sharing our stories, our experiences really vulnerably in a way that just doesn't happen often in our society, right? In this community. And then she was like, okay, what do you want to be? And I said, a storyteller. But that's not a job. She said, actually, there are so many storytellers. I mean, how many different jobs are based in storytelling? You have comedians, you have writers, you have all of these different people who commit their lives to telling stories. And I was like, yeah, but I want to do it in a different way, where we go into the deep, dark places and we're doing it for, to really work through our stuff, not formulated, written down, corrected, although I love that kind of storytelling too. But not all of that, but really raw. We hear all these hero stories of this person was struggling, something magical happened, and now they're living an awesome life. Wow.
And for $100.
Yeah.
You too.
Can we expand this part? I want to expand that and find out what's happening in there. That's the story I want to live in. That's the story that I want to hear more about. So I started creating it. And I started it, honestly, I sent out an evite to a group of probably 30 people.
Yeah.
It was people who I knew had struggled with some kind of something. A lot of them were gun violence survivors or other things. And I invited them to a workshop. And I was so nervous. I did this and I kept asking myself, who are you to be able to do something like this? I did this workshop and I led it exactly how I knew it needed to be led, based on all of these things, from my teaching background to conferences I had attended to ways I had learned to heal myself. I had literally traveled everywhere trying to figure out how to heal, and then brought it to this workshop. And afterwards, everybody was so transformed. People were enamored with this idea of coming together and healing as a community. And so I started doing it more. And then I started realizing, oh my goodness, this is what we need. And not just this, but there's so much more. There are so many learnings that need to be shared. And so I started creating, what I do now, which doesn't have a really concise name, but it's that I teach, I guide, I invite, I provide openings for other survivors who are ready to feel safe again, who are looking for okay, I survived. What now? So I get to do that every day, and I love it.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. And I can't do that without finding my own joy, without taking care of myself, without feeling immense gratitude every day for the life that I get to live. I can't show up and be a loving presence to other survivors without being a loving presence to myself first. So I always take care of myself first, and then I can be fully present to the most devastating things that you can imagine. Humanity survives. And it's a beautiful, heart-wrenching, human, compassionate, incredible experience, and I'm so grateful for it every day.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I love it.
So for people who are listening, who are with you on this journey, and maybe things are coming up for them, do you have maybe 1 to 3 bits of next steps or journeys or invitations? Or what would you let them know?
So the piece of advice that I would share, I'll say pieces of advice that I would share are, number 1, to reach out for help and to be explicit about what you need. Because a lot of times when we reach out for help, we just start pouring things out because we wait till we fill up all the way and we can't hold it in anymore.
Yeah.
And then the person who's receiving it is trying to scramble to figure out, how do I fix this person? What do I do to help? When all you really need sometimes is for somebody to listen, to hear you, to not try to fix you, to not try to give you advice, but to hear you out so that you can release some of that. And then find ways to process your emotions. I remember the first time that I realized that my emotions were overwhelming, but that I didn't have to hold them in. That there are so many ways to process emotions. And especially for trauma survivors, there's so many things out there. I don't believe in a one-size-fits-all kind of solution. I believe in an invitation for people to find what works best for you. And I introduce different modalities. But there's EMDR, there are different kinds of somatic healing techniques, there are meditations, the span ranges from here to here. But being able to find what works best for you requires you to have a support system, right? So it requires you to feel comfortable reaching out for help. So if you try one thing and it doesn't work for you, to reach out, to be able to say, it's so frustrating. All I want is to heal, is to feel better. I don't even know if it's possible. To let all of that out and to be able to try again until you find what works. Because I believe with all of my heart that there is something that works for every single person that's hurting. There's something. And I believe that when you allow yourself to look forward and take risks moving forward toward your dream, that the whole world expands for you. So it's not just looking back and healing everything that's happened in the past. It's also looking forward and imagining what your life could be next. What could be possible for you? And what could be possible may feel really small right now, and that's okay. being able to look toward that and pursue that, thinking, what story do you want to tell at the end of this? Who do you want to be? Do you want to tell a story of, I survived this and I suffered, but I somehow am still alive? Or do you want to tell a story that's, I survived this, my whole life transformed, and now I'm living the biggest and best life I could possibly live? That's the story that I want to tell. And that's the story that I get to keep telling, because I look forward and I think, what scares me the most? And then I do that.
Hey.
That's how I come up with my plan for the year. I did that right before the beginning of 2019. I wrote down a list of all the things I wanted to accomplish, and I thought, all right, which one of these scares me the most? That's the first thing I'm going to do in 2019. Because if I can start my year breaking through all of my fears, the rest of the year is just going to be rising. It's just going to be floating. It's going to be continuing to dream. And it can be incredible. So many of us have a dream of impacting the world. And a lot of us constantly tell ourselves that either we're not good enough for it, or it's too big, it's impossible, it's crazy. Yeah, those are the dreams that are worth pursuing.
Yes, indeed.
And that dream is in every person's heart for a reason. When I was little, I would say, like, ever since I can remember, until I was probably 10 years old, every year for my birthday, I would blow out my candles and wish for world peace. It was just all I wanted in the world.
Awesome.
Yeah, all I want is world peace. Doesn't it sound like a nice little child?
It does.
I'm not wishing for a pony. I really wanted world peace. And when I got shot, I thought, like, of all people, like, how, I don't believe in violence. Why? That question is a whole other thing that we can talk about sometime. But that why me? I didn't understand. But that dream was still in my heart. I just buried it really deep because it became impossible. I thought, violence is inevitable. Horrible things happen to people every day, and it's inevitable. All you can do is protect yourself. So I would tell my kids constantly, don't do that, you're going to die. I would say that to them. I would tell them that because I felt like I was protecting them. I was teaching them what I had learned because I thought that's what kept them safe. But the truth is, when I opened myself up to the possibility of world peace, or the possibility of peace even just in my life, of violence not being inevitable, but joy being inevitable, of love being inevitable, of compassion, then I opened myself up to the dream that I always had and started pursuing it. And honestly, this may sound outrageous, I still believe it's possible. Maybe it's in my lifetime, maybe it's not, but I'm going to do everything in my power to make it happen. Because if I don't, am I just going to sit there and wait for somebody else to do it? And every one of us has a dream like that maybe we've buried, or maybe we're pursuing just on a smaller scale because it's scary to make it bigger. But every one of us, if we just threw out all the fears, all of the things that are holding us back, and just said, all right, take me, I'm yours. What do you want me to what's next? What do you need me to overcome in order to do this? I'm ready. I will do it, and I'm going to do it wholeheartedly, believing that it's possible, even when it feels impossible. I believe that that's how we change the world. And I want to invite everybody to believe the same. We all have these little tiny moments where we read an awesome quote or like hear a great speech, and then we're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to do it. That's amazing. And it speaks to our hearts. And then life happens and we get back to the everyday grind. And then we're like, oh, that was just whatever that was, that was just a moment that I was in a dream world, but it's not reality. But what if we made that our reality every day? Yeah, that's what I get to help people do.
I love that.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. It's amazing. Yeah.
Whew. I know I'm not the only one just basking in this awesomeness.
I get to bask in it all the time. I love it.
That's so awesome.
And I surround myself with people who believe the same thing.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
So right now when this episode's out, we're in our second-ish week of Ramadan.
Yeah.
So
Ramadan.
if you don't mind me asking, what does Ramadan mean for you?
Oh my goodness. Surrender. I used to be a Ramadan martyr.
Okay.
You know, those people are like, oh my goodness, it's 5 o'clock. I got 3 more hours. So I used to, complain all day and look at the people eating around me and be like, lucky you actually get to eat. Not me, I'm sacrificing everything for the betterment of mankind. And then at one point, when I was like 28 or something like that, it clicked. And I realized, oh my goodness, this isn't about... For me, this isn't about sacrifice. It's not about feeling bad for myself. This is an opportunity for connection. Mm-hmm. And every time I'm hungry, it doesn't mean plan your meal at the end of the day. It means remember, connect with God, connect with spirituality, appreciate every little thing in my life. Look around me. It's almost like, to me, Ramadan is a walking meditation. It's where I can't consume food to distract myself from my emotions or from my ideas or from anything. Every time I want to consume food, I think, all right, this is an opportunity to give it to God and to let him carry me through. But it's bigger than just the food, right? It's not carrying me through the fact that I'm hungry at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's carrying me through my emotions, my fears, my doubts. Just reconnect and remind myself that there's something that's so much greater than me. And that I get to benefit from that greatness. That I get to be carried through. I can have faith in whatever I want to have faith in. Like I honestly used to have faith in bad things. Used to have faith that bad things happen. And now I get to have faith that all things happen for the best. That the impossible is possible because God makes all things possible. Why would he put a dream in my life? Why would he put challenges in my path unless they were for a reason? And so I surrender, I connect, I love, and I'm grateful. And I actually remember, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I may be wrong, but I think that your TEDx was on gratitude.
It was.
Okay, so I remember, I'm just going to be really honest, right?
Okay.
I was not in the place that I am now.
Yeah. And
I remember thinking, man, gratitude's for people who are living awesome lives. All right. So when you're struggling, gratitude is just silly. It's, to me at the time, it felt like a reason to ignore your feelings and to just pretend everything's okay when it's not. So I didn't develop a gratitude practice until much later. And when I started practicing gratitude, oh my goodness, the incredible shifts that I experienced in my life. I started realizing that no matter how bad my day is, there's always something to be grateful for. And just that made it so I didn't have any bad days. At the end of the day, writing down the things that I was grateful for made me realize that, oh my goodness, this was a great day. I actually feel really good about it. Even on the hard days, there's something in there. And I was really grateful for that. And then I remembered back to my judgments about it, and I thought, if I had started a gratitude practice then, it probably would have helped me out a lot. And it's not an invitation to ignore what I experienced that day or what I was going through during that time period. It was just an invitation to do both, to appreciate what I was going through, to process those emotions, to give them the time and energy they deserved, and to be so grateful for all of the awesome things in my life. Because when I gave those things attention, I found more of them coming into my life. So, and continue to find it. Gratitude's one of my favorite things. So Ramadan is now a lot about gratitude.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a great reflection. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate your speech because I got to go back in and listen to it.
Oh, that's awesome.
I was like, that's what he was talking about. Okay, I interpreted that differently at the time. Yeah.
Well, it's helpful feedback to make sure that I bring up that point in future talks about gratitude.
Maybe. It might have been where I was at the time and what I was and wasn't open to. Because there was a lot, going through, at that time, 10 years of suffering. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of negativity still in there. Even though I had openings of what was working for me, I wasn't as open to all the solutions and all the guides. And I say all the guides because some of them are really purposeful people in my life who I reach out to and I ask for help. And others are like this guy on my flight home from Florida 2 weeks ago who taught me how to eat healthy and taught me that eating healthy is actually expressing love to myself. And just reached me in a way that nobody has in that way because I was open.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So opening myself up to guidance from everywhere has been a huge realization and a beautiful thing.
That's powerful.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you so much. This has been so awesome.
Awesome.
You're excellent at being an interviewee.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, good. Good to know. All right. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this was really powerful. I know a lot of folks are already sending the text to me like, best episode ever. So you did amazing.
Thank you.
Boom. Appreciate it so much.
No, I really appreciate you inviting me.
It's my pleasure and my honor. For the folks who want to reach out to you and tell you how awesome they are and maybe even take advantage of some of those free resources you have, where can they do so?
So my website is shootingsurvivor.com.
Okay.
I offer free webinars at least monthly, if not more regularly than that. I also have just free resources on there. And then on Instagram, they can follow me at, super easy to spell my name, Nurjahan. So it's Nurjahan.
Okay.
Boulden, Boulden.
Okay, that's your
my
IG?
Instagram handle.
Okay,
Yeah.
so for folks on the go, as you know, we got the show notes all ready for you. Tomroll.com/Nurjahan, Nurjahan, Tomroll.com/Nurjahan.
Woohoo!
One thing I've learned is there's no E's. So if you just remember all A's, you're
all
good.
A's.
You're good. That's what I found.
Yep.
So Tomroll.com/Nurjahan.
Woo!
So thank you once again.
Thank you.
It's been such an honor.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you so much again for having me here. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure as well. Here's our ritual for closing.
Okay.
What is your invitation to the folks listening? What would you like to invite them to consider, to think about, to be, to do, to go for? What's your invitation?
Yeah. My invitation is hope. All you need is a tiny little morsel of hope in your heart. And actually, even when you feel like you don't have it, it's in there. Even if you've buried it deep, it's in there. And just allowing yourself to open up to the possibility of hope no matter what you've been through. So you may be watching this and think, oh, well, she survived gun violence. What I survived is different from that. Maybe you're judging it and feeling like it's less or more, whatever it might be. What I want to say is that we all do that, no matter what our experiences are, no matter how big or small they feel. And whatever it is that you've experienced, hope and the possibility of overcoming it and living the best life you can possibly live, living your dream life, no matter how outrageous it sounds, is more than possible. It becomes inevitable the second that you take that first step and continue on that path. So keep the hope in your hearts. Make sure to reach out when you're struggling, no matter how big or small it is that you're struggling with. And start expanding your world. Get out there. Do what scares you the most. I swear that it'll make your life better every single day.
Cosign.
Woohoo! Awesome.
Well, yes, I was going for the high five too.
I already could see it. I could see it coming. See?
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Alaikum salam.
And to all those listening and watching, we are wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you.
Perfect.
Oh, one more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.